Yes, dude.
No. You guys gotta get sent, you gotta get Aaron here. It's ridiculous. Oh, they're not saying it.
Well, I don't know. I'm not complaining. I'm better in here than my place. No air at your place?
Oh, I got it. Can't go without it.
Yeah, but see, I got the portable one in my room, but it's noisy. So I play with the windows.
Okay, so okay. We're good to go whenever you want to.
Okay, thank you. Just waiting for the clock to strike 7. And it has. So welcome to our members of council and our viewers online this evening to our hybrid virtual and in-person council meeting for Tuesday, June 28th. I would take a motion to open the meeting. Need a mover and a seconder for that. Moved by Councillor Lagasse, seconded by Councillor Corbett, that this meeting be opened at 7 p.m. All in favor? Carried. Our last meeting was June 14th, and we have minutes in our package related to that meeting. If they're in order, I would take a mover and a seconder to accept those minutes. Moved by Councillor Foisey, seconded by Councillor Corbett, that the minutes of the regular council meeting held June 14th, 2022 be adopted as circulated. All in favor? Carried. Any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Hearing none. There's no presentations and delegations that I'm aware of. So we'll move right into minutes and reports of committees and boards. And it looks like the only committee that had activity over the past 2 weeks was Planning Advisory. The Chair of Planning Advisory is in our meeting virtually. Any words from Planning Advisory?
Yes, we did have our meeting on June 22nd at 6, and we had 4 applications. 2 of them will be asking to be deferred pending a site inspection from North Bay Mattawa Conservation Authority, and then the other 2 are as recommended. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them when they come up.
Okay, thank you. I take it then there's no reports from any of the other committee members or chairs that want to speak to anything. Yes, Councillor Vinecourt.
Just the fire department. We haven't had a meeting, but there's some activity. We're trying to. I was going to see if we any information so far on the truck from the email that we've received. I don't know if anybody's. It's coming up. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, there's a motion later in the package related to freeing up
Some
access
funds.
to the reserve fund money if and when we're successful on the bid. Yeah.
All right. That's it. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I'll leave committees and boards, then I'll go right to the motions, I guess, or of those. the non-municipal committees and boards, there's been no activity there unless there's been a conservation authority meeting. Has there been? There is? Okay, so I'd take a report on it if so choose.
We did have our meeting June 22nd, and we met our new CAO, Shira Gauda, I believe her name is. So we introduced her and we welcomed her to the Conservation Authority Board, and also we said goodbye to Brian. His last day will be the end of June, and then we had reports from staff, and we have so far 63 permits, which is about half of last year at this time. So it's going to be above last year. Very high numbers, unexpected numbers, but it's getting to be that I guess it's the norm that they're going to have that many permits. And then we also have new staff for the on-site septic system, both in Perry Sound and in the Nipissing district. And that's it. We do have special events coming up, and that'll be coming up at the end of July, and we won't have a meeting. So I'll just let everyone know that we are going to have a canoe race again this year. So that's my report on the Ottawa Conservation Board.
Okay, thank you. There was construction updates that came in by email today related to the Castle Home project too, and it's continuing underway. I guess aside from all of the municipal committees, our CAO had the opportunity to attend Niagara Falls, the AMCTO conference. Is there any words you want to share with us related to it?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, I will. I will just mention about Castle Home if I can. Currently, the project costs to date $10,500,000 spent to date. Expected total cost of the project is $121,889,000. They are assessing that they are on time, on date, and on schedule, and on their cost factors, as they're not looking for any additional costs at this time. And the completion date is still set for December 2026. So that's a quick update on Castle Home. I had an excellent conference in Niagara Falls, AMCTO, Association of Municipal Clerks Treasurers of Ontario, in Niagara Falls, not this past week, but the week prior. I enjoyed very much the sessions. A bulk of what was discussed was looking for the path forward, how to operate and govern municipalities in what is now a new normal, as it is perceived that we won't make it all the way back to what the previous normal was before COVID. Lots of discussion, meaningful opportunities to decide some things. I've learned some great best practices, and looking forward to assisting the staff to better govern and operate the municipality. That's a brief update for you.
Okay, thank you. Before you run out of oxygen.
I'm not feeling the best.
But you're doing better. That's good.
Thank you.
All right, so moving then to motions of the committees, we have Planning Advisory. And the first one is application B5 2022. I take a motion for it, a mover and a seconder for it. Moved by Councillor Lagasse, seconded by Councillor Vinecourt. Whereas the Planning Advisory Committee has recommended to Council that consent application B5 2022 Kevin Rose be approved, be it resolved that Council approves of this recommendation along with the conditions and notes set out on the attached decision of approval authority form. Any questions on this one? All in favor? Carried. Next one, I take a mover and a seconder for it. It's B7 2022, moved by Councillor Foisey, seconded by Councillor Corbett. Whereas the Planning Advisory Committee has recommended to Council that consent application B7 2022, Mike and Lori Topolinski, be deferred pending a site inspection and comments by the North Bay Mattawa Conservation Authority. Be it resolved that Council approves of this recommendation. Any questions? All in favor? Carried. Next one, I take a mover and a seconder for B8 2022. Moved by Councillor Foisey, seconded by Councillor Lagasse. Whereas the Planning Advisory Committee has recommended to Council that consent application B8 2022, Mike and Lori Topolinski, be deferred pending a site inspection and comments by the North Bay Mattawa Conservation Authority. Be it resolved that Council approves of this recommendation. Any questions? All in favor? Carried. And B9 2022, I take a mover and a seconder for it. Moved by Councillor Viancore, seconded by Councillor Corbett. Whereas the Planning Advisory Committee has recommended to Council that consent application B9 2022, Alice, Louis, and Joseph de Grosier, Lena Blay, and Josette Carrier be approved. Be it resolved that Council approves of this recommendation, along with the conditions and notes set out on the attached Decision of Approval Authority form. Any questions on this one? All in favor? Carried. That takes up care of all our motions of committees. There's no notices of motion that I'm aware of, nor is there any bylaws other than the confirmatory at the end. So we're all ready to disbursements. I'd take a mover and a seconder to table them, and then we'd entertain any questions. Moved by Councillor Viancore, seconded by Councillor Corbett. I'd open the floor to any questions of the disbursements. Yes, Councillor Lagasse.
I have a question about Public Works, and I think if she's here. Backhoe, the labor on the backhoe, and the grease, hydraulic oil, and odor oil. I noticed they're all the same price except for the backhoe. What are they?
So what we do is when we buy grease, oil, hydraulic fluid, we share that costing with every account. So like the backhoe will get a slice of it, the grader gets a slice of it, everybody gets the same amount put into their accounts. We're trying to take advantage of for the next increase. A barrel of oil costs $965 and a barrel of hydraulic fluid is $956 currently. Labor on the backhoe. Unfortunately, this company has a bad habit of not invoicing us for several months at a time. So anyways, we had to change the piston in the extend-a-boom on the backhoe.
Is that the new one or the
Yeah.
old? Okay.
The new one. So the pin let go inside of the hydraulic piston, so it allows that piston to move inside of itself. And then it was all had let go and it wouldn't hold the hydraulic fluid anymore.
All right. And the engineer services. We need
That's for Antoine. So we're still tendering any dugout culverts that have to be done on Development Road currently. And he's also working on the conservation permitting with the authority.
all right. Okay. And that's it from Public Works, but for general government, travel expenses to AMCTO. Is that just travel expenses? To go to the conference?
Yes, it was.
Just travel, okay. And that went to the conference in Niagara Falls, am I correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's a combination of my mileage reimbursement and my per diems for the day for meal expenses.
From those expense, okay, all right, that's a little bit better than just the traveling. I thought, my goodness, that's a lot of mileage. And one more question, and that's ribbon cutting Mattawa from expense. I'm not sure if I'm right or not, but when we go to, let's say, the memorial service in Calendar, we're invited, and then council makes a motion, and it covers liability if something happens to that counselor while they're going. Was this pre-approved in a council meeting for this counselor to go to a ribbon cutting?
The ribbon cutting ceremony was mentioned at council, and that all of council was invited, but no motion was put forward for that. No.
All right, those are my questions. Thank you.
I don't have a question. I just noted that there's a substantial payment to Andre Gagne, but she is going to be our Canada Day live entertainment that day. And as I understand it, she does a bit of a stand-up comedy routine, plays the banjo, and a variety of other things. So I'm really hoping all our viewers tonight, and certainly myself, are really looking forward to seeing that. I don't know what time she's on the stage, but be sure and be there for the Andre Gagne show at the Canada Day celebration.
Well, let's hope I'm as entertaining as the rest of JR and his friends.
Okay, good.
You're the opening for JR.
Yes.
Any other questions on the disbursements? Okay, I'll read the motion then. Moved by Councillor Viancore, seconded by Councillor Corbett. That the following disbursements be approved as prepared. All the departments under APO 6075 for a subtotal of $332,660.59, and payroll batches 1221 through 1224 for a subtotal of $34,296.16, resulting in a total disbursement of $366,956.75. Last call for questions. All in favor? Carried. Correspondence and information. First one is the cancellation, typical July and August break of the second meetings of both the July and August period for council. I'd take a mover and a seconder for that. Moved by Councillor Viancore, seconded by Councillor Corbett, that the following regular council meetings be cancelled in their entirety: July 26th and August 23rd, 2022, and that a special meeting of council be scheduled in accordance with Section 240 of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended, if so required. Any questions? All in favor? Carried. As mentioned earlier, item 2, the fire department tanker truck. There's been some email correspondence from the deputy chief, and Councillor Viancore raised the matter tonight in consideration of adding potentially a tanker truck to our fleet to have greater water carrying capacity. I'd take a mover and a seconder for that motion. Okay, so moved by Councillor Viancore and seconded by Councillor Corbett. I was just going to say there, the amount of our bid, if we put a top end limit on, not sure how much research people do into council minutes for competing bidders, but it's kind of tipping our hand if we publicly declare what our top end limit is on this. So I would just leave the that out. We could decide in-house at some point what that limit is, but the motion itself is to free up all of the reserve fund basically for use, but we could direct the CAO to communicate within our department communications what our true upset limit should be if it's not in fact the full amount of the reserve fund. So I just say that as a cautionary note that we shouldn't publicly declare what our highest and final bid would be. If that's all right with everybody.
Through your worship, if I can give an update.
Okay.
Currently, the winning bid or tender on this vehicle is $5,200 at present, and there are 6 days and 21 hours remaining in the bidding process.
We were here in a similar situation with the rescue van that we currently have that we were the high bidder on. No, that's not the case. The rescue van that we ended up purchasing was just a straight out private sale. It wasn't a bidding situation. We missed out on the one that we were bidding on prior to acquiring the one we have. And the real interest in these online bidding things really comes in basically the last 2 hours prior to the closing date. Everybody's just watching in the lead up to that, nudging along, but it heats up at the last minute, and the chief at the time explained that it was at the very last minute that we ended up losing the rescue van that time to a higher bid. So I would expect much the same with this one. Let's hope not, and we could get it at that price, but I would expect the attention towards it will be more intense as it comes to the deadline. On that note, then, I have a motion moved by Councillor Vinecore and seconded by Councillor Corbett. Yes, Councillor Corbett.
I'm wondering if it would be prudent to go in camera so we can come up with a consensus amongst council for that upset limit. Then it's recorded appropriately for the minutes, although it's in camera. I don't know if there's another way for us to legally do that outside of a council meeting.
You could just say that the reserve fund is to be.
Through your worship, I am able to propose a poll question to members of council, and they can individually respond to those questions, but ensure that all members of council are able to see that email thread for transparency purposes.
Makes no difference to me. If we desire to go in camera, we could do so for this. Or if we want to, as Brian suggested, just send in a figure that we're comfortable with as an upset limit. For the most part, it's my opinion that I don't, I would almost have to ask the chief or the deputy chief who's going to be bidding on this, who's obviously, or hopefully at least, has spent an amount of time researching what these things should be worth, ask their guidance. I'm of the mind that they need to have some latitude of where they can go, but they should have enough self-control to say, yeah, that's one we're going to pass on at this point in time, because it's just beyond what I think is realistic. So I think knowing, and our motion states that our top end is 64,000 in our reserve fund, I'm already at the point that I'm not comfortable with paying any more than 64,000 for it, knowing that that's the full reserve fund. But because I think there's other ones out there that could be acquired cheaper than that. So, but I'm not going to, publicly declare that my upset limit is half of that or whatever either. So it's up to us whether we even want to name a figure or just leave it to the,
Your worship, we caught about half
Bidder.
of that. We're having some Wi-Fi trouble either on our end or yours.
okay. No problem. So do we want, your suggestion is we go in camera to come up with a figure? I was poorly trying to describe that if we,
I'm okay with the poll as well. I think it was just a matter of making sure that staff have kind of clear direction so they don't end up overstretching above where council would have reasonably thought it would have went, or what we're comfortable from a financial standpoint to invest in a truck at this point. So it was just to help staff make sure that the parameters are clear. But your worship, you make a great point, and we shouldn't be having that conversation in an open council meeting when it's a public bidding process. So.
okay. Well, I guess what I'll summarize to say is I'm comfortable leaving it with the CAO and the deputy chief to come to an appropriate figure, knowing that at the maximum, we're freeing up the full reserve fund, and we know what that figure is. So, and it's named in our motion, $64,000. So we're all certainly of the hope that it would be far less than that. Does that work for us?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yep.
Okay, so I'll read the motion in,
Your
moved by
worship?
Councillor, whoop, yes, sorry.
I was going to suggest removing the section where it says and said bid not to exceed. And just remove
Okay.
that from the motion.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay. I'm putting a period after the word bid in front of the and there. So I'll read that motion now and we'll see if it flows right. Moved by Councillor Vinecore, seconded by Councillor Corbett, whereas the deputy chief is seeking council's approval to bid on a 2000 GMC C8500 tanker truck, fire hall number 2. And whereas there is currently a reserve fund of $64,000, therefore council authorizes the deputy chief to place a bid. Does that work? Any questions?
I think it should at least say not to exceed the threshold of the reserve.
Okay. I'll add that.
My only point to that would be if the bid goes up to $78,000, there's no clear direction from staff that said not to exceed the 64,000. So
Yeah, I think the deputy chief said it was worth about 40.
yeah,
Some other number he threw out there.
yeah, it normally goes for over 50, I think was what the information was. I'm just trying to be clear for staff so that we don't put them in a position where they're unclear. That's all.
Mhm. I think the CAO can have conversation with the deputy chief and set the parameters prior to the online bidding anyway, and with a little bit of variance room one way or the other. We don't want to lose it over a $50 bill either, but it's things like that.
It's true.
Yes, Councillor Lagasse.
Fair enough.
I just have a question. I know we bid on a truck ourselves a few years back, and we won our bid. But I just want to know for this government one, is there going to be an emission test reading that would tell us, how the truck was taken care of, and if an emission test reading would tell you the condition of the truck, basically what you're bidding on.
I read a little bit of the documentation either on email or hard copy here. And it's basically, there's the truck as is, where is, and you take your chances when you're bidding on it. So as all auctions tend to be now. So
if I could just answer the question, because I'm actually looking right at the paragraph, Your Worship,
Okay.
Is that okay?
yes,
The motor vehicle sold under this contract is being sold as is and is not represented as being in roadworthy condition, mechanically sound, or maintained at any guaranteed level of quality.
which I
Okay,
believe is a standard clause they put on every vehicle.
yep. When it goes to auction, you're
Councillor
usually
Legacy.
buyer beware.
Thank you. So,
Sam?
as you know, we'll have to safety the vehicle once it arrives into Ontario if they do successfully get the bid. And then that determination can be made once it arrives here.
I'd be interested to know the results if it gets that far. Thank you,
If
Anne.
it comes. Okay.
Okay, so I'll reread the motion just because there's been an addition to it then. Moved by Councillor Viancourt, seconded by Councillor Corbett, whereas the Deputy Chief is seeking Council's approval to bid on a 2000 GMC C8500 tanker truck for Fire Hall number 2. And whereas there's currently a reserve fund of $64,000, therefore Council authorizes the Deputy Chief to place a bid not to exceed the reserve amount. Does that satisfy our concerns?
I'm fine with that.
Okay. All in favor? Carried. Agricultural Society is having their fall fair August 20th, and they're having a beer garden from 11 to 9 p.m. And they're seeking council's declaration that it's of community and municipal significance. I would take a mover and a seconder for that. Moved by Councillor Legacy, seconded by Councillor Corbett, that the Council of the Township of Bonnfield, for liquor licensing purposes, declares the Bonnfield Agricultural Society's annual fall fair to be held August 20th, 2022, from 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. at 105 Trunk Road to be an event of municipal significance and community significance, and advise the Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario that it has no objection to the application for special occasion permit or the fall fair taking place. Any questions? All in favor? Carried. Item 4, an application to license the Shore Road Allowance from Mike and Shirley Connolly. I take a mover and a seconder for that. Moved by Councillor Viancourt, seconded by Councillor Corbett. Whereas Mike and Shirley Connolly have submitted an application for license to use a portion of the Shore Road Allowance on their property at 62 Rock Ridge Lane to replace existing unsafe stairs and to permit existing deck on the Shore Road Allowance. And whereas the Manager of Planning and Development has reviewed this application and recommends to Council to approve the Connolly's proposal to license a portion of the Shore Road Allowance as per the attached application, with a condition that all permits be obtained from the North Bay Mattawa Conservation Authority, Oceans and Fisheries, and the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry, if required, prior to issuing the license. Be it hereby resolved that Council approves of this recommendation. Any questions? All in favor? Carried. Item 5, a letter from Ms. Morano and Mr. Watson regarding changes in the zoning bylaw. I take a mover and a seconder for it. Moved by Councillor Legacy, seconded by Councillor Corbett. That Council acknowledges receipt of Natasha Moreno and Timothy Watson's correspondence, and that their letter be referred to the Manager of Planning and Development for commenting, to be included on next Council's agenda under unfinished business. Any questions? Yes, Councillor Legacy.
I just want to thank them for writing to us with their ideas now that the official plan is under review. So we do respect the people that have requests and concerns, and I encourage others to do the same.
Okay. Any other questions? All in favor? Carried. The next one, we're already two. As information, we're adding a new firefighter. And we have the unfinished business of the leased property, but there's no report for this meeting. So we've made it to confirmatory bylaw. Take a mover and a seconder for it. Moved by Councillor Foisey, seconded by Councillor Vinecore. Whereas council deems it expedient to pass 3 readings of the following bylaw at this session. Be it hereby resolved that a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council from June 14th, 2022 to June 28th, 2022 be read a first, second, and third time, passed and numbered 2022-28, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and be engrossed in the bylaw book. All in favor? Carried. So as mentioned at different points throughout our meeting tonight, I look forward to seeing everybody at our Canada Day celebrations. I was interviewed by Bay Today earlier today, and we're going to give a bit of coverage to our events and the list of things we have going on, along with our fireworks. So we hope that the weather holds for us and that we can have a good turnout and a good day of celebrating the 1st of July. On that note, then, I would take a mover and a seconder to adjourn the meeting. Moved by Councillor Lagasse, seconded by Councillor Corbett, that this meeting be adjourned at 7:35 p.m. All in favor? Carried, and thank you. Good evening, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.